Good evening. Welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. I am Zawadi, your host for the evening. We have an exciting guest, an exciting topic. And actually, our guest is somebody you know, Dr. Eve. Dr. Eve has had 30 plus years in mental health services. And we're going to be talking about seasonal things. I think you know what I'm talking about, audience. So, first of all, once again, welcome. And the main thing I want to say right now is please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. So every week you'll be able to get notifications to come on live with us. But, I could talk about a lot of things, but this topic is really important. People are feeling away since we've just had a time change. It's darker in the evening, it's darker earlier. We wake up and it once again dark. So you go to bed, it's dark, wake up, it's dark. And, just different things are happening. So I'm going to bring on Dr. Eve. And as you know, Dr. Eve is also a co founder of Disruptor DAO. So without delay, we are going to bring Dr. Eve to the stage for this conversation. Hello, Dr. Eve. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Excited to be here.
Great. Well, listen, I'm feeling crazy about now. I don't know what's going on in my body. It's 5 o'clock in the evening, getting dark. I'm feeling like it's midnight and I'm ready to go to bed. What is going on for the seasonally?
All right. So, a lot of people end up feeling during this time of year fatigued, right? Like they're reaching for that fourth cup of coffee all over again. And they start saying things like, why does my body feel broken? Right. And so I want to be able to say, I think we say things like that enough, and our bodies and our minds are going to condition themselves to believe that our body's really broken. So we hope that after this chat, our viewers can reframe some of that thinking. That's our goal for tonight.
It sounds good. I'm really ready for this conversation. Audience, how about you? How have you been feeling? Put a one in the chat if this resonates with you.
Mm. We
And
have some ones coming up.
okay, I'm just going to ask you to jump right in.
Okay, so you know what? Let's start by understanding how science, nature, and society shapes the season, right? Unless you live closer to the equator during the winter seasons, the earth actually tilts away from the sun. So there's natural sunlight, right? And research shows that the winter blues and seasonal affective disorder, which also is known as SAD, are linked to reduced exposure to natural sunlight. And this is important to note because when that happens, there's actually reduced serotonin levels. And that's a neurotransmitter that helps regulate our moods. So think about this. When it's when we have less of that serotonin, it could impact our well-being in several ways, right? There's feeling of sadness, depression, anxiety, mood swings. There's loss of interest in things that you normally have pleasure in doing. There's even challenges with memory or concentration. Something that I hear a lot is, I feel like I have brain fog. Now, another thing that also happens at the same time is that it could lead to increased melatonin levels. So, what's melatonin? That's the hormone that regulates our sleep wake cycle. So, the higher the melatonin, then the more tired we feel, right? So, wanting to have more naps in the course of the day than we normally do during the summer. And another thing that happens is that you could actually have this spike in craving for carbs, and it comes out of the blues, and you wonder why. It's important to understand the science behind some of those things. And then there's the physical and psychological factors like increased pain due to cold weather. That's a real thing. Reduced physical activity due to the inclement weather. There's the increased sadness during the holidays, right? And sometimes it's associated to grief or loneliness. So all these things can impact, this winter season that we call winter blues.
So you've said a lot of things. Can you really hone in on the difference between winter blues and sad?
I'm glad you said that because I think that we use sad loosely, right? But there's a clear distinction. So the term winter blues, right, is often associated with milder forms of the different symptoms that I just mentioned, right? In situations that I just mentioned. And so maybe you wake up with some difficulties getting out, and maybe you have some difficulties getting out of bed, for example, right? Or you have that extra cravings that you have, or your mood is kind of low. That's more common in winter blues. But for S.A.D, is very specific because it S.A.D sometimes will the biggest significance is that it impacts your work performance, relationships, or schooling, and it happens specifically during that season. Another thing to note is that with S.A.D, to be diagnosed with that, you need to have at least 5 symptoms of depression. And it needs to last for at least a period of 2 weeks. And then it also has to occur for at least 2 consecutive years. And it impacts significantly your place of work, home, schooling. So those are things to kind of consider. But one thing to keep in mind, a lot of folks don't realize this. S.A.D can also happen during the summer. Now, you may ask yourself why. Well, despite that there may be more daylight in the summer, there's also shorter nights. So there's less melatonin, and that in itself can disrupt sleep patterns and cause depressive episodes. That's why the term is called seasonal affective disorder, because it could actually happen, though less common, it can happen during the summer as well.
I had no idea that it could happen during the summer. I thought it was something that just took place when the fall began to arrive,
Mm.
or between fall and winter. You touched on the science behind it. What's nature's role in all of this?
Ooh, nature's role. You know, when we think of nature, every year around this time, a lot of us start to feel it, right? That slow pull of winter, days getting shorter, lights feels dimmer, our energy dips. And immediately we start labeling it, right? With I'm unmotivated, I lost my spark, I feel broken. But what if your body isn't breaking down, right? Maybe it's just syncing up. What if the winter blues are really nature's invitation to slow down, reset, and reconnect? I mean, if we could look at it in these terms, then what we're saying is it's the reframing can make a big difference, because what happens to nature in the winter? I mean, if you take a moment, what happens? I mean, feel free to share. What are some of the things that you observe in the winter as it relates to nature?
The trees start coming, the trees start shedding their leaves. That's the
That's
main thing that I noticed outside of the cold.
Well,
Uh,
and why does it do that? Because it's its way to conserve energy, right?
mhm.
Animals hibernate, seeds rest underground. Even waters moves differently, right? Rivers slow, lakes freeze, the silence really settles in. So winter isn't just about the gloomy weather, it's about renewal, right? It's the earth's version of taking a deep breath. And we as humans are designed to follow that rhythm. And though we know that, yes, with less sunlight, our brains produce more melatonin that makes us feel more sleepy, and less serotonin, it affects our mood. And just like nature picks up the signs, our biology is literally signaling it's time to rest, reflect, and restore. Yet most of us don't, because while nature slows down, society speeds up.
Just your saying that has me in a more restful state. I notice that I'm breathing a little deeper. And audience, we'll touch on that a little later. So we call this modern society, and we've been conditioned to push through everything, to work harder. It's it's like we've been conditioned to ignore the call of nature, nature's rhythms.
Mm.
What is that about?
And
What is
that's a
it
good
about
way to put
messing
it.
around with nature?
That's a good way to put it, right? We're conditioned to ignore nature's rhythm. But we live in a world that praises doing more than being, and that's a fact. So this is society's role. We talked about a little bit about science, a little bit about nature, but we measure our worth by output. right? How much we produce, how many boxes we check, how busy we are or we stay. And in many societies, we're conditioned to think that we have to work 100% all the time, 365 days out of the year. So in most cultures, stillness is misunderstood, right? We think rest is laziness, reflection is indulgence, and slowing down means we're falling behind. God forbid, so we push, we caffeinate, we push through a season instead of flowing with it. And so for many people, this concept of being feels foreign. So because society doesn't celebrate being, right? It celebrates producing. So the invitation this season is to rest like the land does, right? Rest on purpose. This is restoration, folks, something that we often don't talk about, especially during the busy holidays. It's the end of the year. We got all this planning and all this settling in. Well, this is the power of returning to our roots, the pause, the being. We need to release this expectation that we should have this summer energy when it's wintertime. You know,
Do, go,
Mm,
go, go. I mean, just hearing you speak reminds me of being in Latin America, and having that siesta after
mm,
lunch. But I
yeah,
also love the idea of rest on purpose, uh, reframing doing nothing as essential maintenance. And some people refer to rest as resistance because society doesn't focus on rest, it focuses on go.
yeah, yeah. And believe me, I wish in this here in the U.S. we have siestas, but we don't. We got to program that in. But here's the thing, and I know many of you are probably thinking about this: rest. Who has time to rest, right? Because life is still lifing. But parents are still parenting. Bill still needs to get paid. School is still schooling, and I get it, you know. But let me be clear: I'm not suggesting we quit lifing. What I am suggesting, though, is that we've had the time to rest so that we can align with the season. And that means just allowing little micro moments of restoration. That's all. Even 5 minutes of breathing between tasks, or choosing gentleness instead of pressure, setting limits, which we'll talk about in a little bit. That can bring you back into harmony with how your body and the earth are really meant to function.
I hear you. I hear you. So, in terms of realigning, talk about what we what many of us have heard you talk about before, what we call the 3 R's.
Yeah, I usually, in most of the topics, I'll find a way to bring up the 3 R's because it's relevant across so many situations and scenarios in our lives. And what's the 3 R's? It's reflect, reframe, and regulate. Right. So we started this conversation with actually reflecting on the role science and nature and society plays, right, on this winter wellness. But if we start with thinking about, let's reflect, reframe. Let's talk about labeling, right? Instead of labeling the season as being heavy or dull, what if we reframed it as sacred? A time when your body and the earth are on the same page, both whispering, come back home to yourself. Like, what would happen if this winter, instead of fighting the stillness, flow with it? Reframe your view on the darker days and reframe it as a reminder to turn inward. That's yummy. To breathe deeper, to listen closer, right? Remember that nature doesn't bloom all year long, and neither should you. Being is not doing nothing, folks. Being is doing something powerful. It's allowing restoration. It's our way to regulate. Now, before we share 5 to 7 tips on how to regulate, what if we take a moment now and just practice that? What if
Before
we
we
just, yeah.
do that,
Mhm.
I want to go to the chat because we've got some people agreeing with you.
Okay.
But trust me, audience, we're going to get into all of this. So, Chris and Millie say, I love doing maintenance versus doing nothing. Mia
Hmm.
says, "You are speaking my language. I love to hibernate in the winter. It is snuggle season." Then Mia, you're right about that. Focusing on it that way allows me to give myself permission to stop and slow down. Jacqueline says, "Yes, a resounding yes."
Good, good, good. And I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. So you know what? We've all, I don't know where your day's been, but it's already evening. And in some places in the world, it may be afternoon or morning, depending on who's joining us today. But for right now, let's just practice being grounded, right? What we're going to do is we're going to take a slow, deep breath with counts of 4. So we'll breathe in at a count of 4. We're going to ah, we're going to hold for a count of 4, being, and then we're going to release for a count of 4. Okay, so let's try this.
I'm
And
all in. I'm all in. Audience, are you all in?
let's get our senses out, right? So let's take a deep belly breath in and just count to yourselves and inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Slowly exhale 2, 3, 4. I thank you for that, because if you could do that
Whew.
2 or 3 times, that in itself, it's shifting, right? If we could start with simple breath, your breath, when you slow your breath, you're actually speaking to your nervous system, right? So that gentle inhale through the nose, right? Just count, that's 4 seconds that you're counting in, 4 seconds that you're holding, 4 seconds that you're exhaling. That's not just calming, that's science, because it activates your parasympathetic nervous system. That's the part that tells your body you're safe now. You can soften, you know? And so you layer that in with gratitude. Wow, will that be really yummy? If you take a moment to acknowledge what's steady, what's working, what's beautiful around you, it's this act alone releases dopamine and oxytocins. So your brain's natural feel-good chemicals are actually being produced just by these 2 actions. And you don't have to pay anyone for those things. You don't have to go on Amazon for those things. You are in the driver's seat. It's been proven that so many thousands of research studies have said this, that gratitude literally changes your internal chemistry. It teaches your body that stillness can be sweet, not dull, not scary, but it takes practice. So take that next breath slowly, intentionally, and remind yourself, I'm not behind. I am in the season.
So Venus says, "Wow, that really worked. I feel so much calmer." And what's interesting, that was just one round of breathing. Imagine
Mhm.
if you were doing 3 or 4 of those. And I forgot to mention, I feel yummy.
Good, 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 good. So so that was actually tip number 1, right? Tip number 1 was to breathe in gratitude. Tip number 2 is get out in the sunlight or brightly lit spaces. And the earlier you get out, the better it is, because in the winter, that's when the sun is going to be the strongest. It's very different during the summer. But consider light therapy lamps if it simulates sunlight. One thing that you should know, they're not all created equal. So if you're going to go on Amazon, do your research, really investigate and maybe speak with your physicians on what lights, what type of light therapy would be good for you. Something that you should also know, well, I feel like ethically I would like to share is you're not meant, these therapy lamps are not, you're not sun tanning. You're not meant to have these lamps on for an hour at a time, right? So make sure that you're listening, you're reading the instructions, and you're following suit. And for folks that do suffer from uh, mental health conditions like bipolar, make sure that you're also discussing this with your treatment provider, because if you don't do it on the right dosing, it could also be a trigger. So everything is about balance. And I know with bipolar, sometimes we have an imbalance. So we also want to make sure that you're balancing it correctly. Tip number 3, physical activity. You hear this, but we don't do this in the winter. It boosts mood and energy, right? So even if you could take a nature walk, and if you're in the city, well, heck, take a walk to the next bus stop or train stop. Just being able to do that physical activity, can boost some of that serotonin that you're not naturally producing because of having low light. However, a lot of us are already familiar with YouTube. Well, how about if if you go on YouTube and you look up some exercises there, or a good uplifting music there that you can dance to as you're sweeping, mopping, whatever it is that you got to do, dusting, and you add some movements in there. Engage your senses. Playing music, and having some fragrances that are soothing, incense, that shifts the frequency inside, and so we may be saying, I want to feel better, but our frequency is low. Let's rise it, let's energize it. And so another thing that could be very energetic or depleting is our social connections. Be intentional about your social connections. If you do truly suffer from S.A.D or experience the winter blues, if you think about those folks that lift you up, maybe someone from your faith-based organization, maybe someone from childhood. It takes just one family friend. But here's the thing: the purpose is not to then gather and talk about all the drama. You have enough adrenaline in your life. You want to find something joyful that you can laugh at. There's always fun things or funny things on TikTok, or just on reminiscing about history. The point is, laughing in itself also produces those yummy dopamine. So
Yes.
let's find some natural ways to lift ourselves, right? Okay. Number 5. Number 5 is setting limits. How many of us actually set limits during the holidays? And what does those limits look like? I'm curious if anybody wants to share, because you see, when we set limits, it's an act of self-love and empowerment and preservation. So some of the limits could be prioritize self-care by learning when to say no, so you can focus on meaningful connections. And that first one starts with the connection with thyself, right? Or prioritizing quality over quantity when it comes to social engagements. Maybe during the holidays, there's like 15 events you can go to. Well, how about picking just 3 or 4 that are most meaningful, that will bring you joy? That's important. We all have our share of family drama, even work-related drama, but don't get caught in the twister. Set limits so that the amount of exposure you have to drama is limited, right? And maybe you might want to program a call, and it's not during a time where you're being, so maybe that if you have to call a healthcare provider, or you have to address a phone call with a family member, and it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation, program that time for discomforting time, and then disconnect, and then enter in your place of being. I don't know about you, Swati, but I know when I host, there's a lot of setup, there's a lot of cleanup, there's a lot of shopping, there's a lot of cooking, and then there's the breakdown.
A lot of moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we take the attitude, don't worry, my family will handle it. I'll handle it. But that's not the way to go, is it?
No. So you're not, you know what? If you're hosting, consider potluck. But ask for help. Ask for help for setup and cleanup. Have a setup committee and have a cleanup committee. There's no shame to the game. This is a family event. It's a family affair, or family and friends. Hey, we all work together. That way you have the time to sit down and enjoy your family, enjoy the holidays while you're also hosting. Right? We don't do enough of that sometimes. And here's number 6. Consume intentionally. We know that one of the things that come up, and I often hear that, is those cravings. So what if we plan meals that are rich in mood boosting nutrients, right? Like the omega-3s. It's good for mood. It lifts your mood. It's good for your brain. It's good in general, right? Vitamin D's. So I'll share personally. I love chocolates during the winter, more so than Valentine's or during the or during the Halloween season. But here's what I do to fortify it. Did you know if you could add 2 to 3 tablespoons of cacao powder, it gives you fiber, antioxidants, and magnesium. If you throw in a quarter teaspoon of cinnamon, it regulates your blood sugar. Or maybe you're having a lot of inflammation in the winter. You add a little bit of turmeric with a dash of black pepper, and it has anti-inflammatory benefits. Of course, speak with for those who have medical conditions, or make sure that you're conferencing. But I would suggest use ChatGPT. ChatGPT is an app, or any one of these apps where you can actually put, hey, this is my height, my weight, these are my medical conditions. I'm going through some winter blues, and I want to figure out what are some good recipes that I could use that would substitute these carb cravings. And this is what I have in my pantry. Believe it or not, it would spill out some yummy recipes for you and ideas that you didn't even think of. So there's ways that you can work around these things, but they have to be intentional.
You know, I'm going to admit something.
Mhm.
Right before the show, I had a little bit of 88% cacao chocolate.
Okay, well, hey, listen, at least that's a healthier version of it, right? So pat yourself in the back.
And audience, we always want to say, listen, natural remedies are great and they have their place. Just make sure you are consulting any
Yeah,
physicians that you're working with, because in addition to everything your body is feeling during this season, we don't want you to go off the rails.
yeah. Thank
And
you for thank you for stating that.
you're welcome. And we've taken in a lot of information, a lot of good information. How are you all feeling? What's going on out there? I've been putting comments up. Oh, Mia says, do a potluck and give everyone a role. I like that. I like that.
Mm,
Yeah.
yes. You know what else I like to do during the family gatherings? And financially, I know this also kind of adds some relief. Is we'll have our $5 or $10 grab bag with the family, and so when we do this, we have like 24 to 30 people in our home. So we have everyone bring in one gift, and then we have everyone's assigned a number. They pick a number out of a bag, and depending on your number, that's how you'll know when's your turn. And then we'll have maybe number 1, 5, and 10. Those are the snatcher numbers. So that gives you the opportunity to snatch someone else's gift. So it just makes it fun. It's interactive. You don't have folks sitting in one corner, folks in another corner. Everyone is doing a little something, and it could be fun. And you don't have to worry about giving out multiple gifts. Everyone will leave with something.
We do the same thing. And it's so much fun. It is so much fun. And we keep the gifts to a certain amount. Sometimes $20 for the adults and 10 for the children. And it's just like I said, it's a lot of fun. And in this season, we've had so many layoffs and they are continuing to happen every day. So we really want to be cautious. We
Yeah.
want to make sure that people are not overspending. Although, people are going to do what they do. But these are just some tips. Also, in our society, we tend to self-medicate. The winter blues said we wanted to get off or get off our backs. So we're going to overindulge, sometimes in food, sometimes in alcohol or recreational substances, and sometimes it's even in shopping. So we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we want to know, Dr. Eve, what are some other tips that you have for the next grouping of important information that has to do with our finances?
So let me say, and this is so I'm going to clump 7. This is tip number 7 with several layers here. First of all, you know, this is where the marketers step in, right? Preying on our biological vulnerable states. So we're already feeling a little depleted. And then society hits us with this immense pressure to meet holiday expectations, which can absolutely hijack the joyful occasion. And then we think that we have to match or grant every gift that's on our children's list, right? Or family members list. And then we pay the price. But let me get back to these marketing tactics, right? There's a lot of aggressive psychological marketing. So for example, there was a major study I read just this morning, and they found that, you know, they utilize limited time and scarcity. So what does that mean? You know that ad that says there's only 5 left, and this is only good for another
Mhm.
24 hours or 15 minutes or 5 minutes. This heightens our emotional reactivity. We see that a lot, even in Amazon. It's like, oh, this will only be there for the next 13 minutes. Well, so the next time you see that flash state sale ending, or those type of banners, ask yourself, do I really need this? Am I acting, is this coming from a rational decision, this buy button, or is it my brain being nudged to respond to marketing tactics?
You know something else? This is where we can also employ taking a breath.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
sometimes spending that 5 or 10 minutes just breathing, the sale goes away, and then we realize, oh, I really didn't need that.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Um, there's something else I want to bring up, and that's those buy now, pay later schemes that seems to pop up everywhere now. So, you know, another research, I love reading research studies. Another research was published in 20 last year and this year that shows that consumers who use the buy now, pay later options can spend significantly more, um, and are more likely to carry higher debt burdens. So those holiday expenses, online shopping, and buy now, pay later plans, they pile up the debt. And the other thing too to note is that oftentimes they come with such high interest rates that the minute you miss one and you're paying all these the late fees and the interest rates combined, you're really not getting a great sale, because you probably end up paying more than the market price when it's off season. So this is where the pre-planning comes in. This is why I say, self-care on a budget, because budgeting does not mean saying no to yourself. It means actually saying yes. Budgeting means scheduling time to create that winter budget that includes everything from the gift giving, events, of course, glamorizing yourself, all of those, the heating costs that always goes up during the winter. So if you can create that budget, and note your savings account is not for Christmas shopping. Your savings account is your savings account. We're talking about a separate budget where you're not mingling both. That helps to reduce this overindulgence in shopping. Having an accountability partner also helps with the overindulgence in shopping. And actually, and you could also explore for folks that we understand a lot of people lost jobs. They still want to do some gift giving. Well, if you can explore what you're willing to let go of, maybe you'll find some opportunities to buy little things here or there. For example, maybe you want to let go of 2 trips to Starbucks, or 2 trips a week to that restaurant or that Uber ride. What can you do differently? Maybe you'll find a friend who's willing to do your nails, and for the ladies, and someone else who wants to do their hair. You do some bartering there. It's so many different ways where we can think constructively so that we can still enjoy the season without breaking the bank. So those are some things just to throw out there. But the one thing I want to end with is by saying, putting ourselves first is important, right? So when you can think of gifts that are priceless, those are gifts that um, you can make, right? Maybe it's a poem, maybe it's a brunch, maybe it's something in arts and crafts. But when we give experience, maybe it's spending a time with someone. I personally love that as a gift. I love spending time with family, and that's because items will be discarded, but memories that will always be cherished. So how can we look at gift giving differently? And finally, like I mentioned before, I know a lot of folks have lost jobs. Economy's tight here now. So what if you or being asked, what would you like for Christmas? Think of, or for the holidays, or maybe some of you have birthdays during this time of year. Think of self care. What would support your self care for the holidays? Right. So that's a way where then you can bank that and you could take care of you and celebrate you. I know we've given a lot of tips out here, a lot of suggestions, um, but I hope at least a few of these gems would resonate. And if there were too many to hear in this one session, make sure you look at the replay and remind yourselves of some of these tips and why the winter blues happen and that we are part of nature, you know. And
Absolutely, absolutely. All that you said indicates we need to fight back against this system of biological depletion.
mm-hmm.
And you have given some amazing tips. I'd like to add one more: volunteering.
Yes,
Volunteering at a hospital, at a food bank, at a shelter, lifting someone else's mood an hour or two. It doesn't take that much time. That's
yes,
another way, the giving back.
yes, yes. That's important. Thank you.
Oh, wait, I see some comments. Let's see. There's agreement. When in doubt, do without, Lynette says.
Mm,
Much needed tips to handle this season. Thank you very much. Self care is so important. Beautiful message. Soup kitchens are a great place. Thank you so much for that one, Lynette. So,
yeah.
audience,
And
we
thrifting. Oh my goodness. I'm so
thrifting.
sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
thrifting is huge. As a matter of fact, I just saw that in the news the other day. There's no shame in the game with that because you find the most beautiful treasures, in thrift shops. So secondhand gifting is a beautiful thing because it's all about recycling, and we throw away and waste so much. But folks, I just want to mention too, if you want to share a little bit about what we're speaking about next week, because it's all about the gratitude, but we're going to have Dr. Marie come next week and talk about in gratitude. Oh, how important it is to be grateful, you know, for what our ancestors have given us, because we always think about our ancestors from a place of all that they had to burden. But here we're celebrating all those blessings that gets passed down from one generation to the next. And she's going to be joining us with her daughter. And it's going to be a wonderful way to begin our Thanksgiving and gratitude.
Absolutely. You don't want to miss this. But it's not only her daughter, it's her favorite daughter.
Mm.
So, people, we thank you for joining us this evening. The recording will be up on YouTube. Remember, we're at Disruptor Dow. So, youtube.com/ at Disruptor Dow. So, you can find us. You can share this with your friends, your family, people you know who are going through this season. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and please comment constructively. We love reading your comments.
Yes, please. If anything resonated in there, share it in the comment. I can't see the comments because I'm speaking live, but
You're
would
the
love to hear
guest.
your comments and see your comments on YouTube.
Tonight, you were the guest. You have the night off. So if anybody's just joining us and hasn't been on our channel before, Dr. Eve, also a part of the, I'll call it the staff. She's a co-founder as well, but she's usually with me talking with guests or behind the stage. So that's why I'm saying she is off tonight. She is our guest. We're always happy to have you. So thank you, Chris. So everybody have a great evening, and we are gonna say goodbye.
Yes. Okay.